So we're going to talk about mobilizing energy efficiency finance from private sector perspective. I realize we are cutting into the coffee break, so we're going to make this every bit as stimulating as caffeine. All right? Pressure's on, you guys. So I'm Francis Slakey. I'm the executive director of the Georgetown University Energy Prize. Let me describe it very briefly. First-of-a-kind nationwide energy efficiency competition exclusively designed for small and mid-sized cities across the country. It started with 100 communities. We narrowed the field, and in January of this year, we announced the 50 that will be competing for the next 2 years. And those 50 actually span the compass. They go from Fairbanks, Alaska to Charlottesville, Virginia, and all points in between. They represent some of the wealthiest communities in the country and some of the poorest communities in the country. Some of the communities pay some of the highest prices in energy, some the lowest prices in energy. And together, they really represent the full energy landscape of the country. And the 50 right now are going head-to-head. We'll compete for the next 2 years to see who is the most energy efficient, and you can watch the competition live on guep.org. Now, there are more than 1 million homeowners, more than 100 utilities, and more than 60 local governments participating in the Energy Prize. And I can tell you that energy efficiency financing is front and center for all of them. For the homeowners, it's about residential retrofits. It's about solar on their rooftops. For those municipal governments, it's about their buildings, and it's about mid-scale renewable projects. And then for the utilities, it's about large-scale clean energy projects. So I've actually seen energy efficiency financing, the full scale of it, as both of you have. So let's start with that. Both of your companies, both JCI and HSB, are developing business models to tap a variety of different areas, China in particular. And in fact, both of your companies are members of the U.S.-China Industry Working Group. Both of your companies are contributing to the Performance Contracting Initiative. So let's start there. Can you both describe the innovative financing models that you've come up with, and then say a little bit about how you've adapted that to China? Kaleda, you want to start?
Sure, great. Good afternoon, everybody. Everybody hear me? Okay, great. Little background. Johnson Controls, technology company, makes building controls. Our founder invented the thermostat 130 years ago. Professor Warren Johnson. We make air conditioning equipment. We also make batteries for vehicles. I have been in the industry 33 years, so I was there when the ESCO industry started in school districts in Ohio. So that's sort of my frame as I approach the China market. About a decade ago, we have a lot of experience trying to do energy service projects in China. Unfortunately, experience is that which you get after you need it, right? So, and the third time is the charm. So we started, like many multinational companies did, by trying to adopt the energy savings performance contracting model that's very popular in the U.S., $6 billion plus industry per year, very successful in the federal sector. Many projects across the U.S. federal government are funded this way, and we just assumed we could pluck it in the middle of China and do lots of work. Unfortunately, that didn't work out so well. In fact, every company, multinational company that tried to adopt that model stopped after a number of years, weren't successful. Turns out the ESCO market in China is very large, larger than the U.S., approaching $9 or $10 billion, but it's made up of about 4,500 very small little ESCOs. And they use a model that's very different, the shared savings model. And that's something we started in the early 80s because it was low friction, no risk for the customer. It was a way of getting your technology installed, but it doesn't scale very well. And most of the incentives in China were actually specifically tied to that particular contracting model. Most of the work in China is done in the industrial sector, 80+%. Most of the work done in the U.S. is in the public sector, schools, universities, hospitals, federal government. So we attempted to apply the shared savings model. A very successful technical project, the Hongta Hotel, it's a St. Regis Hotel in Shanghai, one of the first ones to receive all the incentives. We tried for years to try to sell the receivables, to turn it into a financial model that would scale. It was sort of like hitting ourselves in the head with a hammer. It felt really good when we stopped. So we were 0 for 2 in defining what that model was. But we didn't give up, or at least I didn't, and we have now adopted a hybrid model, which adopts some of what was successful in China and some of the things we really like about the SPC model. We like using international standards for measurement and verification. We like bundled projects instead of single technology solutions. We want to do deep savings, 20 to 25% savings. But in China, they like simple contract terms. We have more lawyers and engineers. They don't. So simple contract terms and short-term contracts. So we've come up with a structure that is essentially where we get paid 80% or so of the contract value as the contractor, and 20% is only paid after performance is verified using international standard protocols by independent third-party agents. It's sort of the best of both models. Now, in China, they recognize this. This is the classic guaranteed maximum price construction project with fee at risk. Multinational banks know how to fund these projects. Regional banks know how to fund these projects. So it's something that's financeable. So what we did is we translated the energy performance contracting model into something that's more familiar, and frankly, we've been quite successful with it. We're going to be highlighting one of our projects on Friday at the U.S.-China Energy Efficiency Forum, and we think that perseverance sometimes pays off and that this is a potentially scalable model.
Thanks, Clay. Perseverance pays off. Hitting yourself in the head with a hammer. You experience any of those moments?
The long answer is yes. But Hartford Steam Boiler, a little insurance 101, we are an equipment insurer. We're the largest equipment insurer in the world, owned by the largest reinsurer in the world, Munich Re. And equipment insurance is a type of coverage it contains is for replacement and repair of equipment and the corresponding business interruption associated with the equipment's downtime. Our primary insureds are small to medium-sized businesses. We probably insure this George Washington University. I didn't check, but we do a lot of. We had the market share of universities, large office buildings, but the major companies we insure are restaurants, hotels, funeral homes, churches, grocery stores, cosmetic stores, retail sales and service, the small businesses, and that's where we think most of the energy savings is really to be had, albeit it's hard to capture that type of efficiency. And that's the kind of nut we have to crack. From an underwriting perspective, we have that capability, and we're trying to take the same models we have for underwriting small and medium-sized business for equipment breakdown, that's the property damage replacement and BI, and include energy efficiency. Now, we offered energy savings insurance in the mid-90s, and we sold 11 policies. And they were all in Canada. There was no market for that. I mean, the HSB building, downtown Hartford, was one of the first 10 Energy Star buildings in the country. And it didn't even make the local Hartford news back then. I mean, that was before energy savings was in. And it was kind of frustrating for us because we saw it. Because we were insuring equipment, we're out inspecting boilers. That's part of our job as being an equipment insurer. And we see efficiency every single day. Now, what we've done as far as our business model is concerned is that we have taken that's the basic product and we have included energy efficiency. So our basic product that we're offering as part of the energy efficiency package is equipment breakdown. We cover the equipment for breakdown, repair, business interruption, and asset performance. So we're really pulling in the energy efficiency, and so we're really insuring the equipment. And from a financial standpoint, that seems what really is what people are interested in. And I think I should address the elephant in the room, that no one likes to buy insurance. I don't need this. I don't need to ask. I've never known anyone that has a smile on their face when they write that premium check. But nevertheless, insurance in this marketplace we think has some value, and we've done a lot of work in this. Is because we're always trying to find where does insurance make sense for the large ESCO markets, the type that Clay's in, for example, his balance sheet can handle a guarantee approach. They don't need classic insurance. But for the small and medium-sized ESCOs, the small ones that do not have that scale, it might make some value. But the details there is there's not much margin on these projects. How much are you going to give up to the insurance company for these projects? What people, ESCOs, have primarily done is to over-engineer the project and basically put their risk management in their engineering. And that's fine. But from the project finance side, for large projects, we found something that made sense, not for energy efficiency, but although it applies. And that is, we have quantified the value of insurance from a credit enhancement standpoint. We've integrated standard credit risk modeling with the stochastic distribution of energy savings that we spec'd out as projects and combine and actually compute the probability of a credit enhancement as a function, really, of wherever credit rating they're at. And so what we have seen from that is that the value created from insurance in the credit enhancement more than pays for its multiples of the insurance costs. And that mechanism is very powerful because now we have a conversation that connects coverage to credit enhancement. Because when I say the value of insurance, what does the insurance cover? If the insurance is a pure guarantee, a guarantee means no exclusions. We cover everything. No insurance policy covers everything. That's why it's called insurance. But you can connect what's being covered. And it's beautiful for us because it connects policy wording with money in your pocket. And what we have found with this type of insurance, with this credit enhancement model, we can actually make people have a smile when they write the check because they're going to get a lower interest rate that more than it actually helps fund the projects. And from where we've seen benefit for this, and what we're doing in China, we have tested and implemented around the world. This is not something we're using for R&D. These are the methods that we know work, is that the credit enhancement actually has been shown to be a facilitator. It's to the point where lenders can lower reserves and do more projects with the same amount of money with this insurance in place. That's the real value. And in the China marketplace, we have relationship with insurers. That's not the issue. The issue is getting connected to the energy service companies, the 4,000 Clay mentioned, and the lenders. And this is where the U.S. State Department has been very helpful in actually putting these.
And I'm glad you brought that up, Rick. So one of the hosts is the State Department. So let me ask you what you think the role of the public sector is. Just a quick answer from both of you on what you think the role of the public sector is.
That's my answer. That's what I was going to end with. Yeah, that's what I was going to end with. That they've been helpful for us and valuable in connecting facilitate us to the people who can really use the products.
Mm-hmm. And for you, Clay, is there a role for the public sector?
Yeah, carrots and sticks. People like carrots better than sticks. Sticks we've heard about. The first presentation this morning was a great talk about building codes and how effective they are raising the floor. I think incentives are very powerful. We saw in China how if you incent the wrong model, you actually do not drive scalability and growth. So all the things that were mentioned by the morning keynote really need to be paid attention to, and we need to incent the right things.
One thing I've noticed in the Energy Prize competition, it's all data-driven, and for the very first time, some of these cities are actually seeing their energy use. They've never seen that before, and it's actually transformative. They're recognizing that they can make strategic decisions about where to invest their money, but they're also seeing directly what the gains are. So, from your point of view, what's the role of information technology, data analytics, in driving energy efficiency? Rick, do you want to start?
Well, first of all, we could not offer these projects any insurance without this level of technology. It would just be cost prohibitive. So from that standpoint, it's a necessary part of delivering insurance, energy efficiency insurance. But more than that, in our policy language, equipment failure is defined as, and I quote, a sudden and fortuitous loss, end quote. Well, with monitoring technology and sensors now being so prolific and cheap, we've actually seen equipment degrade and actually been able to see 2 weeks before a compressor failed. Yep, there was the signs. We knew it was going to fail. As a matter of fact, people told us this compressor was going to fail. And so it's really changing the role, I think, of insurance, is that insurers are no longer going to be sudden fortuitous losses. We're going to be able to actually see failures actually and predict degradation to the point where failures are not going to be sudden fortuitous anymore. And that's going to revolutionize an industry, my industry, that'll be 150 years old in 6 months.
So you're seeing the failures in real time. You also get to see the successes in real time, too. Clay, do you want to talk a little bit about how information technology is shaping things?
Yeah, hugely. Three areas. Exactly the same three that Claire mentioned earlier. Claire mentioned the use of benchmarking in the city of Chicago using, I assume, EPA Energy Star Portfolio Manager, which those of us in the U.S. know very well. Another group that we're involved in is the U.S.-China Clean Energy Research Program, U.S. CERC. And one of the research areas there is actually benchmarking. China doesn't have the equivalent of the EPA Energy Star Portfolio Manager. A pilot done by ACF International and working with DOE and LBNL is focused on kind of creating the first one for Beijing. Moving into the next phase, we're bringing in advanced analytics so that we can do virtual audits. The first step in any one of these energy service contracts is a detailed, usually investment-grade audit. Analytics have gotten to the point where using much the same data that we have, monthly utility bill data, square foot, meters, whatever, we can not only say that this building is in the 50th percentile, could be in the 75th, we can identify specific improvement measures and the magnitude of the potential savings. So we don't have to send smart engineers to every building to come up with an audit. We find greater variation in the people doing the audits than the data analysis, and we're piloting that with 30 hotels in China. So this might be an opportunity where we could actually leapfrog, bring some things back from China to the U.S. to our benefit. Second area is leveraging data in the control systems within buildings. We're the performance contractor on the Empire State Building retrofit, 38% savings, $4.4 million, 15-year performance guarantee. Every single sensor, every single pressure, flow, and temperature is monitored every 5 minutes, compared against its norm, red, yellow, green, from a central monitoring station, so we know well before precipitous, sudden, bad things happen in the building. And often that's what happens. You make an improvement, a couple years later you find 2x4s in the ventilation systems, you find things that have been valved off, and that keeps the building operating at top performance. The third area I think is very exciting. We know that with renewable energy we can meter it, net meter it. We know with CHP we can do that. The negawatt is very elusive. How do you measure something that didn't happen? With analytics, we're now creating virtual negawatt meters that can continuously track the energy savings over time. So we can use the same type of financial structures and financing that we would for renewable energy projects at a level of accuracy that allows us to monetize those savings. Big idea will be very popular, I think, globally and help as an enabler to financing, and I think it will be very helpful in the Clean Power Plan as increasingly energy efficiency, which is the lowest cost, cleanest way of reducing carbon emissions, but it has to be measurable, verified, and has to be transparent and very rigorous.
So you use the phrase big idea, so let's focus on that for the last question, okay? So what's your counterintuitive, half-crazy prediction of where we'll be on climate and clean energy in 5 years?
Well, it's not really counterintuitive, although it hasn't been mentioned much at this conference. It was alluded to in Hal's comments this morning, sort of set up the fact that no one's going to be able to build power plants for 400 hours of usage a year. But to me, the future that's going to revolutionize our power grid is then the word we'll be talking about in not that distant future, within 5 years, will be energy storage, not solar. So energy storage is going to be the next I think, the next frontier. It is, actually, right now. And it's not just lithium-ion batteries.
And Clay, what do you think?
I like that answer, energy storage, because we make them. But aside from that, I think the counterintuitive thing, I mean, the difference between Copenhagen and Paris is Copenhagen had tried to be a top-down, everybody in the room, didn't quite work. Paris is a bottoms-up, INDCs, countries identifying what their opportunity is and making their commitments, and then hopefully every 5 years increasing their ambition. That 5-year clock goes off when they start increasing their ambition. I would predict that cities, subnational governments, cities and states are going to have a much greater influence 5 years from now. They can be more ambitious. They have greater political will oftentimes. They can show leadership. They're looking after their citizens. I think cities will be the key towards the next incremental savings towards that. I was lucky enough to be at the White House on Monday when 81 companies in the U.S. Basically made very bold and ambitious commitments around greenhouse gas reduction and energy efficiency and things like that. I think we can expect a lot from the private sector as well. So while the discussion since Kyoto has always been about nations and countries, and of course 195 have to come together some form of agreement, I expect a lot of the progress will be made in cities, subnational governments, and the private sector.
All right, well, I have a prediction of what's going to happen in the next 5 minutes, and that's that we're all going to get a cup of coffee. So thank you all very much. Thanks a lot, Rick.